Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire, who is afflicted with allergies. Allergies are just wreaking havoc upon me. You might hear that on occasion here. I apologize now if I sneeze, but today we are continuing on with our DM guide, taking a look at zones of control and assigning point values to different NPCs and structures and the like, and what effects that can have on the gameplay. Now, before we continue on, I just want to reiterate that having a map with the different sections drawn up and the amounts of control and influence that each different faction has over a given area can be incredibly helpful. It's a really useful prop for the players to be able to see and feel out just how much control each faction has over a given area. And it can also help them plan out their strategy for how far in they want to go into certain sections and begin wreaking just absolute havoc upon enemy influence, control, and whatever power structure they have in place. But failing that, because at least I know for myself, drawing out the maps can be a little bit tedious. But if you at least write out a list of the different sectors, zones, what factions are present there, you can fill out the details as the players scout and explore and find out what's what, where's where, doing their research. And that can still be fairly effective, although not as effective as having a map in most cases. So, if you can do that, if you know someone that loves doing that, then definitely try to work on getting those props put into place, or at least the list. But now, let's continue on with zones of control using the fancy business background edition. So, for zones of control, starting off, you want to assign point values, in particular to the NPCs that the players are going to be dealing with. Basic grunts overall should be worth 1 to 3 points in groups of 5 to 10, depending on the quality of their levels and their stats. And, if they have particularly potent equipment on hand, then, you can adjust that a little bit further. And then team leader NPCs, sergeants, enforcers, squad leaders, and the like, those can be worth 3 points just all on their own to reflect their effectiveness, their higher value to whatever organization the players are fighting. Same thing with captain level NPCs. These are platoon leaders, region subcommanders. Those can be worth 5 to 7 points. Boss level NPCs, region commanders, or majors and the like, those can be worth up to a grand total of 10 points to reflect that the overall effect and the control they exert in a given area. Unique NPCs, of course, should have their point values adjusted depending on their relative strength and how aggressively they're used. But these aren't the only things that players can attack and affect. You can also affect different buildings, like different lookout points. So, watchtowers, security checkpoints, these can be worth 3 points. And since they're going to be staffed with grunts typically, maybe a sergeant or an enforcer, the point value for that given location will go up as well. And then you have strong points like bunkers, trench and weapon emplacements, or palisades. These are 5 to 9 points. Any real hardened point that the opponents can fight from. So even a particularly well constructed home uh, or a house with windows boarded up and the like, those can qualify as strong points and can be something that the players attack and affect. Then you have bases like forts or barracks. Those can be worth 7 to 12 points just because they're going to house a great deal of enemy NPCs and will have lots of grunts, sergeant level characters, maybe even a captain thrown into there. And then fortresses, so castles, manors, mansions, anywhere that the region's commander will be residing at will be incredibly valuable and will have 15 points to them assigned to them. But these aren't the only things that can be affected because the point value is not the only thing that will be reflected in these particular buildings. There are other effects that taking out these locations can have. For example, one of these could also be a communications center, and likely is going to be in most instances, whether it's radio, messengers, telepathic, or some kind of magical means of communication. Taking that out can slow or prevent reinforcements from joining encounters, lowering the numbers of enemies that the players may encounter at a given time. And taking out barracks, that can reduce the number of enemies in further encounters as well, reducing the amount of strength that a rival faction can project in a given area. And then the various resource centers that are out there, whether they're mines, businesses, fuel, whatever they do to generate funds, whatever they do to get materials to their operations, this can decrease in rival faction funds, and if the players can capture it, increase the player faction funding, and it also reduces the overall control a faction has in an area. Whatever point values you assign to these is just going to depend on how significant these are. For example, say you're playing a mafia related game, a, a building that generates a great deal of funds, whether legitimate money laundering or just straight up illegitimate funds, is going to have a massive and pronounced effect. Whereas just, a little mom and pop shop that they raid for protection money now and then is not going to give as much of a bonus to a faction. But it can all still add up. And finally, armories, whether it's just a big gun stockpile or a place where arms, armor, other armaments are just stored, attacking that can reduce enemy combat effectiveness, lowering the quality of weapons, less ammunition, and so will have a pronounced effect on the gameplay and can be another way for the players to feel really engaged and like their strategic decisions are having a greater overall impact on the game. Now, these are not the only means by which the players can affect gameplay, and it's not the only style of setting that you can create using different zones of control. As I mentioned before, this works pretty well for a zombie apocalypse kind of scenario, which you probably know by now is a particularly favorite kind of setting for me. But you're not going to have uh, things that are like enforcers or captains or any kind of command structure with zombies. You can with different surviving factions, say leftover military units, platoons, divisions, uh, different militias and the like. Those can have their own command structure, but overall, the dominant presence is typically going to be zombies, and these are not going to have command structure typically. Maybe in a fantasy game, yes, with vampires, liches, necromancers, and the like. But for just your straight up viral plague zombies with uh, different creatures roaming about, it's those different creatures where you're going to assign higher point values. Unique zombies are going to be deadlier and have greater effects on an area than your standard regular shamblers. So the shamblers, the walkers, just your regular zombies, those can be the grunts, whereas enforcers and the like can be hardier, more terrifying creatures like the speed freak zombies I'd mentioned before, people who mutated with a high amount of drugs in their system at the time. They are just rapid, fast moving zombies to the point that they wear their hands and feet down to just these sharp talons, these bladed nubs that they just eviscerate and tear into people with. Those will have a higher point value because they're much more dangerous than your standard issue zombie. And then you can have things like tanks from the Left 4 Dead series, or juggernauts uh, from State of Decay, and you can have the spitter zombies as well, bloaters that explode and attract more zombies to an area. Just more things to throw at the players that will have differing point values, but removing those threats, that will lower the overall threat level the zombies present in an area, making it less likely that they'll encounter other zombies, and even more less likely that they're going to encounter these unique zombies, making it easier for them to establish control. However, this also makes it easier for other surviving factions to push in and try to take control, meaning the players will have to contend with, negotiate with, or just straight up fight off other surviving factions. So it presents some unique and interesting complications to the gameplay. Because having an out and out gunfight in the streets, that will make enough noise that it should start attracting other zombies, unless they're in a situation where the surrounding areas, districts are relatively depopulated of the zombie menace. But these are not the only things that can be done. Certainly, I'm not the only one that's established this type of gameplay, so please go down below and share your thoughts in the comments. I love the discussion and the exchange. Certainly appreciate that everybody takes the time to watch these videos. And speaking of watching these videos, over here are going to be some that YouTube thinks that you will enjoy, something that fits the algorithm and something new I've done. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time, and you folks have yourselves a good day.